Carried. Thank you. We now move to item 10, which is another disposal, this time in Ponsonby, and I welcome Andrew, Philip and Letitia to present the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just make some very brief introductions. First of all, my colleague Andrew Alcote, who has recently joined us at Eke Panuku Development Auckland as a portfolio specialist, and also my colleague Philip Lim from Auckland Transport, who we've been working jointly with on this proposal. I'll hand over to Andrew from here. Oh, sorry, Andrew, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, Andrew, we can't hear you. Woo!
Sorry, I'm here. Thank you, Letitia, and good morning, everyone. So we're here to seek approval to dispose of 2 Pompelia Terrace in Ponsonby to enable its redevelopment utilising the principles of service property optimisation. So AT and Eke Panuku have worked with the adjoining owner, Urban Collective, on a proposal that enables council to retain its ownership in a 43-space basement car park and an upgraded public toilet facility. And the developer will be able to make use of the airspace to create a plaza which will remain open to the public and also enable them to extend their mixed-use development. The key considerations that we've supposed been working through is future-proofing the basement car park as a flexible space that is able to be reconfigured based on changing transport needs. And the second consideration was ensuring that sufficient protections were put in place or can be put in place to enable ongoing public access throughout the plaza. This proposal has been workshopped and gone through the Waitemata local board, and they've formally endorsed it. And yes, I think the report is read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you and welcome to your role. We have a question first up from Councillor Coombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora koutou, nice to see you all this morning. I have 2 partai, if I may. The first one is just checking that Eke Panuku, is Eke Panuku aware that there's a legacy parking fund of approximately $400,000 that's left over from the old Auckland City Council development contributions, and it's tagged to parking? And if so, was any consideration given to how that parking fund could be used to optimise this development in terms of securing outcomes for the public?
Thank you, and through the chair, I wasn't aware of any parking funds, so no, it hasn't been considered at this point, but it's definitely something that we'll be able to look into.
Yeah, it would be great through you, Madam Chair. I think it's one of those funds that keeps getting forgotten about, and a big chunk of it has been used for the Motat car park, and it's this committee that signs off the release of those funds, but it goes through the local board. So it's just, I think, have it in your back pocket for when there's another potential development, perhaps in the future, that you could leverage those funds. Just a second question, if I may. Just in terms of, I support this in terms of this is an opportunity for leveraging this site, and it's good to see it progressed. It was actually something I suggested to Auckland Transport back when I was on the local board, but of course at that time it just went into a black hole because there wasn't an agency that could really look at these things in a holistic way. So it's great to see Eke Panuku progress it. But I don't see anywhere in the report or any indication that there's been a discussion with Auckland Transport about optimising the public car parking on this site presents an opportunity for the road corridor for Ponsonby Road, and that this opens up a conversation about that we're here investing in a car park So this means we can look at the corridor in a different way. And I just wanted to make sure that that is being flagged. Well, I guess my question is, how is this going to be highlighted to the businesses, to the community, that the investment in this car park does mean that in the future, when the road corridor is looked at, there might be reallocation of the parking on the road corridor in favour of more public space, active modes, PT, and that this is kind of a trade-off for this investment.
Sorry, through the chair, Philip, can we please ask you to respond to that question since it's an AT-related matter?
Sure. So Ponsonby Road is identified in the Future Connect program as a bus priority improvement for bus priority improvements, and it's funded through the RLTP for through connected communities in the first decade for both bus and cycling improvements. So, but in terms of actually communicating that to the community, Letitia, have we made any communication via the local board or anything like that?
Sorry, I can jump in here. So we have reached out to the Ponsonby Business Association and have informed them before we went to the local board of the proposal, and then have also been in communication with them since then regarding today. And we have provided assurance to them that we will continue that the open conversation with them as the project developed to be approved.
And certainly I'll just continue. The 43 spaces are the existing spaces that are being retained, and that was the rationale for retaining them, to be able to reduce the number of spaces on street.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I mean, ideally, I would like to have seen it in the report that there's this understanding from Eke Panuku and Auckland Transport in terms of the future of the area and how this car park is an opportunity to really show that we're investing in parking, and that parking is going to be re-looked at in the future. And ideally, Madam Chair, it would be good that we could have then noted that in our decision making, so that everybody's aware of it going forward. But I appreciate it's not in the report, so I won't take that further. Yeah. But and I don't need to talk to this, but I am in support. But I just feel that that's kind of a missed opportunity to have not given that holistic picture around the future of parking, transport, active modes, the use of the corridor, and that this is the quid pro quo for this investment. So thank you. I'll leave it there, Madam Chair.
Do you want to move it, Councillor Koo?
Yes, I will move it. I will move it, and I won't try and interfere with what the recommendations are there. Okay. But I move it with that this is why I'm supporting it, because I just think I am showing a commitment to the needs of the businesses for parking, on the understanding that the corridor is going to be reprioritised in the future.
Right, got that. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair Collins.
Oh, Efesa Collins. Thank you, Councillor Collins. You're Panuku, aren't you? That's great. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Councillor Darby, you have a question.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And that was quite helpful. Thank you, Councillor Coombe, for giving a bit more background. I was thinking the same. I thought this was looking a little bit inconsistent with what we're doing in other areas. So can I just have a check? At what level at Auckland Transport, management and possibly governance, was the decision taken to retain this asset at all? Was consideration given? Was there some kind of options analysis of and consideration given to disposing of it outright and letting the market provide for the mobility needs of customers?
Yes, so it was considered as part of the service optimization opportunity to dispose it outright. But the as working together with Panuku, we also just assessed the option of delivering the same number of car parks and achieving the outcomes that were beneficial for the community. Letitia, you could probably speak more on that assessment.
Thank you. Yes, when this first came through to Iki Panuku and Auckland Transport, it was following an approach by the adjoining owner, who's the developer who's interested in purchasing this land. We worked with Auckland Transport to ascertain if the property did need to be retained in whole or in part. That went through for approval to the Auckland Transport Board. We continued working over a period of, I'd say it was probably close to 2 years, with Auckland Transport while they confirmed final car parking requirements, did their various assessments. And on that basis, we are still proposing that the minimum number of car parks are retained. We are setting this up in such a way whereby we can, should in the future part or whole of the property not be needed for car parking, it will be structured in such a way that it could be disposed of, but that's not something that we're considering at the moment. Auckland Transport have informed us that there is an ongoing need for this car park and 43 car parks to be retained in this area, and that's the basis that we're working on.
Okay, that's very clear, Letitia. So that it did go to the AT board or a subcommittee where the decisions could be made, and the title that results from this could be offloaded at a future time, because there's absolutely no easements or constraints that would actually compromise the value. You're ensuring all of that. I see your head nodding affirmatively, and there is an assumption to ensure that at least the costs of operating, I think I saw 30,000, would be offset by paid parking in this location from day one that it opens. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Walker, question from you.
Sure. So I've got a question around the nature of the parking in respect of the development. Has consideration been given around providing parking for micromobility, for bikes, and in particular e-bikes, for charging for e-bikes, for car sharing, particularly car sharing on the part of electric vehicles, and charging for electric vehicles as part of the redevelopment of this site? Essentially, that goes to future-proofing the area so it fits with our transport strategies into the future, which will be a different form of parking to what they are now. And in that respect, using this site as an exemplar of what parking could be like and should be like. Thank you.
Yep, so certainly AT's parking design team have been working with Panuku and the developer on a concept plan which future-proofs for EV charging, whether it's bikes or cars, and also thought has been put into future-proofing for that the shared mobility for car share operations. So the design has been future-proofed for that.
And if I could just note, Madam Chair, that's also detailed in the report. So there's confirmation and that we are seeking to achieve those things.
So just a supplementary question, Madam Chair. So in respect of achieving those things, are we proposing to achieve those things at the outset? And by that I mean not sometime in the future, but now?
Letitia or
So,
Andrew?
if I may jump in, Madam Chair. So, given that it hasn't been, given that we haven't actually had the approvals yet to commence with disposal, we haven't, been able to properly negotiate with the developers on their timeline and get an understanding for when all of this will sort of be finalised. But it is expected that if it is approved, then through those negotiations, and once we've got an understanding, we will then have a better idea of what the space will look like at the outset.
And as I mentioned earlier, Madam Chair, this has also been structured in such a way that there's flexibility, so it can change in the future if it needs to, as community needs and society may or may not change.
Yeah.
And just a question, Madam Chair. In respect of exercising these requirements, I haven't seen the contractual relationships that are proposed, but are we in Auckland Transport in a position where we can drive those things?
Through the Chair, yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe that's the end of all the questions. Are there any comments? Look, I don't think there are, because they've kind of been made as by way of the questions for this particular item, and I think that's been particularly strong by Councillor Cooman, Darby and Walker. So to that end, it's been moved and seconded, and I will take it to the vote on voices. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move to item 11, which is our council group and our council parent quarterly